Hey everybody, it's Hewitt here. This episode is a little bit heavier. It deals with injustices done to Native peoples in the United States, as well as dealing with suicide. So if you want to skip this episode, we fully understand. It might not be your cup of tea. Also, if you are having some of those very intrusive thoughts, you can dial 988 or go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org, where you can talk to somebody. They'll be there to help you and help you realize that you need to keep going on. All right. And like I said, if you want to skip it, cool. If you want to stick around, this one's about to get real. Welcome y'all to Backwoods Obscura, a podcast dedicated to the lore, legends, and myths surrounding the creatures that may lurk in your backyard. My name's Hewitt.
I'm Chris. How you doing, man?
I am doing okay. It's been a weird week, real weird week, because, one, took my son to Baton Rouge for his medical appointment.
Of course, yeah.
Got food poisoning while I was in Baton Rouge.
That's always fun. Did you have to, drive back with the food poisoning?
I was driving.
Was it, mostly percolating?
It was one of those of, Oh. Well, I hope for the next 3 hours this doesn't come back, and it turned into a 4-hour trip instead of a 3-hour because getting out of Baton Rouge took 45 minutes because I-10 northbound
was just back.
was down to one lane.
Oh no!
Yeah, they're rebuilding the bridge over the lake by LSU. So,
that's always fun.
So having the bubblies in your tumbly that only excessive diarrhea will cure.
I don't know if cure is the operative term.
No,
there.
it's not. It's
that is the result of the bubbly tummy.
Yes, it was, and it's one of those of getting them cold sweats and ravel on the way home. All right, I only got to make it 20 more minutes. Come on.
It's 20 minutes looking at the clock, 19 minutes.
And then when I got back the next day at work, so I missed work because I was sick the whole next day. Then the next day I was at work. I got kicked out of my classroom so that they could redo leak testing. So I stayed in the gym all day with my kids. And I was like, well, this week's dead. This week is not worth a darn.
It's wow. Had to go to Baton Rouge, had to get food poisoning. Now I have no classroom.
And then today, our band is actually going to St. James and is actually playing, or probably already played right now, because Union Parish is in the semifinals. And since Union Parish doesn't have a band, they always ask our band to come. Our band has played their homecoming for them because they don't have a band.
That's weird. Union Parish is pretty small, so... Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
So this week has been just a wash. Yeah.
My week is just, there hasn't been anything overly stressful. Just, just stuff. I've been trying to get back into school, not necessarily for a degree, but just to get a certification, just to make sure I can not quit. I'm not quitting my job, but I want to broaden my expertise.
And in case you always have that opportunity, plus certifications are always good.
Yeah.
It's why I'm going back to get my master's in educational leadership.
And now on a positive note on that, I'm looking at all the certifications and I'm I could do this. I could sit here and I could have gotten this 10 years ago. I don't know why I didn't. On the other hand, I'm fuck, I got to go through, the financial aid and go through that.
Yeah, I'm still dealing with that too.
Yeah. I'm going to have to see if it even goes through because I don't even know what happened last time I was in school. So, it might have just been long enough to where they're okay, we'll figure something out. Maybe I can get something figured out before the next administration comes in and I can get that paid for.
Hope so.
Yeah.
Hope so. Or maybe Parthian shot on his way out.
Yeah.
Joe can be executive order, presidential duties, no student loans, and then he throws down a smoke bomb, and he's gone.
Look, on one hand, I understand why he pardoned his son. On the other hand,
He shouldn't have. He shouldn't have. I get it, but he shouldn't have because it's gasoline for other people's fires. But that's not the kind of...
It is whatever. He could also get rid of my student loans.
He could.
Personally, just fuck everyone else.
No.
I'm kidding,
anyway, to get off of that before we start going down a soapbox of something terrible.
Sorry, I keep hitting the mic stand.
So before we step up on that soapbox and turn this into a podcast that is not what we initially wanted it to be, how about I talk about something that's slightly terrible in a different way? And by slightly, I mean absolutely.
Oh, cool. Like, I like talking about financial aid right into, like, depressing stuff. That's cool.
Well,
it's like going from sadness to...
depression? Yeah, well, that actually connects to the cryptid I'm going to talk to you about.
What, student loans?
No, that's not a cryptid. That's real. That's 100% real. That's not a cryptid, man. It is Walking Sam.
How much does he walk?
A lot, apparently, as my child screams in the background.
Hey, look, our listeners at home know what this podcast is about. It's about cryptids and your daughter screaming.
At everybody, because she's not happy that someone's not holding her at the moment. She is definitely going through a separation anxiety, because like I'm pretty sure my wife is getting our son ready for bed right now.
Right. Okay.
So baby is like, you left me alone.
I am in this room. I do not want the dancing vegetables.
No more of them, mother. But in any case, Walking Sam is also known as the Tall Man.
Right.
And very odd, because Walking Sam might actually be two separate cryptids, or goes through phases, because his other name is the Stovepipe Hat Bigfoot.
Stonepipe hat.
Stovepipe Hat Bigfoot.
Stovepipe. I was like stonepipe.
Like a tall top hat.
Yeah.
So he appears near Wind Cave National Park in South Dakota.
Okay, so you say Stovepipe Hat Bigfoot, and my immediate thing is like, this is a D&D reference, Legends of Evandris. Oh, what's that character's name? Torbeck.
Torbeck, the bugbear blood hunter. Yeah.
Immediately what I thought of.
It's way worse than Torbeck.
Torbeck's just sad.
So, well, it might be kind of close then. But he appears near the Pine Ridge Reservation, which is near the site of Wounded Knee, the massacre at Wounded Knee. Now, before I continue with the description of this, do you know about Wounded Knee?
I know the basics of Wounded Knee, and that the retelling of Wounded Knee in classrooms is a bit whitewashed.
That is putting it
mildly.
Wounded Knee is the quote-unquote battle that ended Native American resistance, and so it was the death nail in the Indian Wars in the late 1800s, because what Wounded Knee is the 7th Cavalry rounded up a bunch of women, children, old men. This is not the Braves and the fighters. They had these folks in a spot known as Wounded Knee, and a gun went off or a wagon door slammed, and in any case, it could have been a misfire. It could have been someone with a gun. It could have been a soldier with a gun. But somebody heard a gunshot and opened fire on the unarmed Native people that were gathered at Wounded Knee. And they opened fire. Like, it's just I hate to say it this way. It's just like Danny DeVito, and they came in blasting. And the reason that Wounded Knee is the death knell for Native American resistance at this time is initially a lot of Native Americans, and especially the Sioux, thought if they kept fighting the U.S. military will eventually back off like they had in the past, because it's not cost effective to keep throwing all these little groups.
Yeah.
But what happened is there was an investigation into Wounded Knee. 5 soldiers were brought up for investigation. Not only were they found not guilty, they were accommodated and given the Bronze Star for bravery.
Oh, of course.
So, and then newspapers started publishing about these brave heroes dealing with
brave white people.
These brave, basically called these brave heroes of America,
They slaughtered women and children, but they
well,
weren't white women and children.
But no, it was that they called them savages. So they killed savages, and what happened?
Oh yeah,
is,
I was trying to avoid saying savages. But
well,
yeah.
I'm not, because this is history, and this is what was put out there. But the reason it was such a morale killer is
that's a way to put it.
Here's
a morale killer.
The reason it's the morale killer for the resistance movement is the Native Americans realized they weren't just fighting the U.S. military or the U.S. government. They were fighting
everybody,
the American people, because here's a newspaper published in Boston or a newspaper published in Texas. Newspapers published thousands of miles away from where this event happened, talking about how good it is and how more of it needs to occur. And people cheering, like random people cheering this. And so you're not fighting just the military, you're fighting an entire nation who wants you eradicated. And it just deflated them because they realized there was no way to actually win. And so
there was no, like, okay, so they felt like the advocacy for themselves was just dead in the water.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a way for them to effectively fight, because also after Little Bighorn, when Custer got killed, they killed a celebrity. Which, if you want a wild trip, go read about Custer and why he was doing the stupid shit he did. It was okay. I'll ruin it. He was a general during the Civil War, but he had beret in front of it, so that meant as long as there was a war, he was a general, youngest general in the U.S. military at that time. And then the war ended, and he got bumped back down to colonel. So the whole reason he was doing what he was doing is he wanted to be General Custer again. He didn't want to be colonel, he wanted to be general. And he got killed, so he killed a celebrity, and then America started taking the war with the Native Americans more seriously and started sending like actual major detachments of the military out instead of just like 1 or 2 divisions. So the thing is like Wounded Knee is a massacre. It's not a battle. Yeah. No, and the fact, slaughter. And like you said, the whitewashing of this that it gets taught in history classes, if it even gets taught in history classes, because you and I didn't get this.
The most I got when it came to Native American history and like relations with colonizers and white folk, Europeans, is a lot of like, I mean, this is the South, and this is how a lot of these subjects are taught. Oh, this happened a long time ago, and then the natives, they came together on Thanksgiving, and they had this. Don't worry about the next 200 years of history. They just somehow died. It was not smallpox or us killing them.
Yeah, it's
our reservations.
That was ours. Now, as a teacher, I teach.
Yeah.
I teach the Indian Wars as part of the Western expansion, and how, like, hey, this happened and it was wrong. However, I want you to realize this that we did then evolved into imperialism, and imperialism involved in us getting into
other areas. I have a question. This is an aside.
Okay.
As a history teacher, as someone that was teaching history, and someone that probably knows a little bit more than me about like historical context on things, I have heard like historical context in terms of like certain things being portrayed, kind of creating narratives with history. I have heard that like people have in our history books. This is something that was in our history books as kids, and we grew up in the 90s and 2000s. Where you saw civil rights era photos in black and white.
Yeah.
And like my first thought is like, okay, it was just commonly used stuff or commonly used cameras that were just out there, and that's what they used. But you really go back into that era and there were color photos. So there's this whole idea that like the use of black and white photos in like history books is to portray like something like the civil rights movement or someone like Malcolm X or Martin Luther King as further away than it actually is in history.
There's a bit of that, but I can also tell you why a lot of times images in history books are in black and white. Ink prices. Yeah. It's cheaper.
Yeah. I mean, I figure like that's one of those like pop, like I hate to say like pop, but like one of those things that gets spread around in like social justice circles where they're like, yeah, it must be this. It's like, it's probably a little bit of everything.
It's a little bit like why do we have so little information about Native Americans in American history? The answer is because we actively tried to destroy their culture in this same time period. Like from Wounded Knee, you also have the Dawes Act. You have the Carlisle schools where it's like, you're no longer Running Bear, you're now John Running Bear, and you're going to wear clothes, and you're going to talk like this, and you're going to be a good Christian.
Oh, did I say John Running Bear? I said John Deacon, your nickname is Running Bear.
Pretty much.
If you want, but we're going to call you John.
So that's the kind of stuff that's happening. So why is like Walking Sam being a surprise to me is not actually a surprise. Like me not knowing about this cryptid, this entity is not like, I was surprised to find out about, but I wasn't surprised that I didn't know about, because there's a lot from Native culture that we don't know. It's also one reason that we were going to kind of
avoid it. Like, I would like to talk about it, but I would like to understand what I'm talking about, because I don't think as someone who's white and grew up pretty disconnected from like Native culture, I don't know if I feel comfortable doing that, especially since like there are things about Native culture I didn't realize until I was older. Like, I didn't realize they're like when you talk about like the Mi'kmaq, the Cherokee, all these different tribes, they're always portrayed as like these primitive little cultures that, and like some of them might have been, but you don't realize just how big their territory,
how much area that they actually covered,
and how sophisticated they actually were, because a lot of that was eliminated.
It was. And so not knowing about Walking Sam led me to really want to research this one, and then found out what it's connected to. So to get back to what Walking Sam is, again, near where Wounded Knee appears near the Pine Ridge Reservation. Walking Sam is one of two things. Either a ghost-like 7-foot-tall creature that is often described as a shadow with white eyes, or it'll look like a person, but it'll have no mouth. So there'll be like little dots for eyes and no mouth. Very much a kind of, like uncanny valley kind of humanoid something look.
Uh-oh.
My child is playing with Legos on the other side of the wall, future Chris. So a kind of uncanny valley humanoid that looks human but is way too tall, and something is just off. The limbs are overly long. There's a tall stovepipe hat, which makes them look even taller. We've mentioned that with some of the other things, like when we talked about the Hat Man.
Just like Men in Black.
Men in Black. That thing of just putting a hat on can somehow make someone appear.
That's also like a common ghost trope as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like the man in a hat. Like, or you can talk about like serial killers. Like, I think
H.H. Holmes supposedly had like
well, he had a bowler, but like, who is it? Jack the Ripper
was supposed to have been wearing a top hat. Now, when Walking Sam lifts those extremely long, disproportionate limbs, you can sometimes either see the souls of the people that he has killed trapped there, or you can see like actual trophies, like the macabre viscera. Like, he lifts it up and like, here's my weird like people.
Here's my weird guts collection.
Yeah, like,
and it's not guts from Berserk. I mean, it'd be about the same, you know.
Now, he's very much in this version a boogeyman-like creature that targets teenagers and those with depression and anxiety, and comes to them and tells them that they need to kill themselves. He encourages them to commit suicide by telling them how much of a burden they are, or how much trouble they are, how much better it would be if they came with him and didn't keep bothering their family or their quote-unquote friends. So he's basically a walking intrusive thought.
Yeah, like, I was about to say intrusive thoughts.
Now, the other version of him is a 12-foot tall, hairy humanoid that sometimes wears a top hat, that has a very strong odor, may or may not have hooves, depends on the version of the story, bright red eyes, but both versions of Walking Sam are noted for whistling at night.
Or do they do the like whistle that's like as they get closer, it sounds like it's further away deal?
It's
I
like
don't like
it's
that.
like El Sabone, or there's a version of the Crusoe from the Philippines that's the same way. That the
Or
more
Crusoe.
the Crusoe,
Mm.
like the closer that creature is, the further away it sounds, and if it sounds like it's right next to you, it's actually far away. So like that seems to be a universal
Yeah.
thing. Now, let's talk about the origins of Walking Sam. He originates with the Lakota people that come from the northern end of the Great Plains in the United States and the southern part of the plains in Canada. That's where their territory was before they got put onto reservations. They have stories of shadow people, stick people, and suicide spirits. All of this kind of matches Sam, because sometimes Sam is described as a shadow. Sometimes, I mean, he's extremely skinny.
Right.
And he's also encouraging people to unalive.
Yeah.
So now to go into the more specifics of those is there are the stick people, who are spirits that are believed to live in the woods. Now, they're usually invisible, but they are described as very thin, resembling trees, so tall and very skinny, like their branches. So again, kind of matches the description of Walking Sam physically. Now, they would throw sticks at teepees and discourage you from going into their woods uninvited.
So they'd just be like, "Nah, you can't come in here."
No, and they would just like throw crap at you.
Oh.
Now, they could cause fear, insanity, dread, and confusion in humans who disrespected them by coming in uninvited to their territory or by whistling at night when they were trying to sleep.
So they whistle, but they don't want you to whistle.
Well, this is like, there's a lot of Native American stories about don't whistle at night because it draws unwanted attention.
That seems like a lot of folklore is about like either teaching a lesson or trying to get people to do things they shouldn't do, and that feels like something that's like you shouldn't whistle at night because you're going to draw the attention of
something.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, I'm not whistling into Appalachians at night.
Yeah.
That there's stories of too much stuff. Same thing. Don't whistle at night there. So
I wouldn't whistle in the Honey Island swamp either.
My wife and I have 100% adopted this as a policy of don't whistle at night. Like, she smacked me in the back of the head because one time I whistled for our puppy before he passed to come inside. She's like, "Don't whistle at night." I'm like, "Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't think." But they would steal children and women to either be slaves or wives. So the thing with these stick people is I'm getting big fae energy. This very much sounds a lot like European fae type behavior. They can mess with you mentally, and if you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, well, may I have your name type situation.
Yeah.
They're very similar also to the Puckwudgies from the East Coast of North America.
Name.
Yeah, like it's such like a benign name for something that's actually a total little asshole.
I mean, that's like
Same thing like with Will-O-Wisp, though.
Will-O-Wisp or Boggarts or,
Boggart is a funny sounding one, too.
Or like Tommy Knocker. It's like Tommy Knocker's such a funny name. Oh, they just murder people.
Yeah. Now, stick people would target children and teenagers. The suicide spirits and the shadow people definitely targeted teenagers and adolescents. So, I'll get into that, trying to talk about explanations here in a minute. I don't want to jump the gun too much. There is also, to go more with the Bigfoot aspect of Walking Sam, there's one called Takuhi. Takuhi. Anybody out there, if I mispronounced it, please let us know.
You can go to our Facebook and be like, "Hey, yo, you're mispronouncing a lot," and we'll be like, "Yeah.
Please, you know what? Send me to the phonetic thing on the internet." But it translates literally to big man, which is if it's a 12-foot tall Bigfoot, that is definitely a big man. Now the thing with
it's like, that's a big boy.
The thing with the more Bigfoot aspect or possible version of Walking Sam is he's not fully physical because he is kind of like a genus loci. He's in this area and he is part of the land. He protects the land. He guards the land. He is the land, which means he exists, but he also isn't fully physical. So like the reason why he can disappear and nobody sees him is
he's kind of just he is and isn't.
Yeah. Now,
is this like phase shifting?
A little bit like that. Now, if this version of Walking Sam and kind of like the creepy Slender Man-esque Walking Sam are the same entity, what a lot of people think happened is when Wounded Knee occurred, that all that negative energy and that trauma, as well as several of the battle sites that are also near here, bled in and tainted Walking Sam, making him into what he is now from what he originally was.
So to use like white people sort of terms, it's like he is like a giant poltergeist, essentially.
Well,
or like almost like there is a term like poltergeist is not the right term because that's ghost, but
okay, Princess Mononoke.
Yeah,
the boar at the very beginning, like there are these great nature spirits, but because of man's actions, they've corrupted. Like the boar got tainted because of all the ironworks and the pollution getting into the water. So this old god became an abomination. That's what happened in Mononoke, and that's kind of where they're going with this. It's like Walking Sam's still there to protect the area, but because so much has hurt it hurt him and twisted him. So
it's like a collective trauma that's like been. It's not only just passed on to like the people,
or to put it this way, a much nerdier version is when we played Exalted, what happened with the Ebon Dragon, because the Ebon Dragon used to be a dude and then they broke part of him and he became something else. So like just like all the Infernals,
just casually throwing out an Exalted
let me throw out like a 20-year-old.
Hey guys, who here plays Exalted 2nd edition?
Nobody anymore. Now, there's another version of him that says basically he's a creature that was condemned to walk the earth alone. And so the reason that he's encouraging people to unalive themselves or to commit suicide is so that they will be with him permanently. So like he's the worst version of I want you to be my best friend.
I think there's a spirit in like Malaysian folklore that's like that as well.
There's a couple that are like that. There's several yokai that are that way. And one other version of how Walking Sam was created is that he literally was born from the trauma that was Wounded Knee directly.
You see, I think that's what I was thinking. Like, I think there's a term, like there's the corrupted god version, but like the idea that like this collective trauma, this horrible event manifests something from it because it was just so horrible and just so impactful. It's
right.
It's like hearing about like the stories from like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's like there's so much folklore that came out of those events and just horror stories.
Yeah, I've seen.
Yeah, like just like we don't need to have more depressing things here, but like just like I mean, shit, Godzilla came from the collective trauma of that moment,
especially Shin Godzilla.
Yeah.
But so let's get into some sightings because there are multiple sightings. So as far back as the 1800s, there are sightings of the stovepipe or stove hat Bigfoot. Like, so there's hundreds of years, and even further back if you go with oral tradition of there being the tall man or the big man in the area and him being kind of a protector spirit. Like, hey, if you go over there, there's really good fishing. Yeah. So you go over there, or hey, stop fucking with these trees, or else I'm going to Lorax you by throwing stuff at you. Or I might show up and stare at you intimidatingly, and you will behave because you are like a 5'6" to 6'2" human, and I am a 12-foot tall Bigfoot wearing a top hat.
I am going to Black Snake Moan stare at you like Samuel L. Jackson, and you're going to behave.
And I will stare at you until you act right, or I will make you act right. Like, so there's a lot of stories about him that go back before any type of written record. Now, so a lot of people have talked about him and mentioned him, and like, I might be, if I was feeling depressed, I might say, well, Walking Sam had come by, you know, like, or I saw Walking Sam and now I'm having some thoughts. So like those type of stories, and the stories of like the stick people and the shadow people and the suicide spirits, those date back hundreds and hundreds of years, but they're not written down. The first recorded sighting of the big man passing down through the area are the 1970s. Like the 1970s, everybody was seeing a Bigfoot. Like, it seemed
1970s was a wild time to be alive because you had Bigfoot, you had aliens, you had conspiracies. Like, what else was going on in the 70s? Like, you had
the gas crisis.
You had the gas crisis. That's depressing in another way.
But the thing is that there's the Bigfoot version of Walking Sam has been seen forever. 1983, on the reservation, there was a massive increase in the number of Native youth suicides. And they were attributed to Walking Sam because survivors, or those that people were able to catch before they tried to do anything, said Walking Sam came and talked to them and said, you need to come with me. I'm going to make everything better because right now you're not doing great. You're making it worse. Everybody hates you. Just being like the worst fucking asshole.
Yeah.
These,
this manipulative little fucker.
Not little. I mean, you can't say you can't say little shit to like a 7 to 12 foot thing. You little shit. Hold on. Let me get on a ladder and say that to your face.
Let me get a couple of ladders. I'm going to stack them. Oh no, I fell over. Damn it, Walking Sam. This was part of your shit.
You're just sitting there tied to him now.
Hey. Damn it. I'm Viscera.
Hey man, I got Conker's Bad Fur Day. You want to play it? No? Well, we're playing it.
This is like the 20th time.
God, I'm tired of the Great Mighty Pooh. And the only reason we're throwing jokes in like this, folks, is because literally this is like, I'm watching Chris right now be just a little squirmy.
Just a little bit.
It's just but the thing is, so like 1983, you have that. But then around 2015, there was going to be a mass suicide of Lakota teens. And I'm talking like 100+ kids suicide pact.
That's quite a bit. That's like, shit, now I'm forgetting, what's that one cult? That
Jonestown?
Yeah. That's
well,
like a Jonestown.
No, the thing is like, what makes this worse is how small the population on reservations usually
relative
is.
To like, I mean, Jonestown, he was pulling from.
Yeah, but so what happened is a pastor was able to stop the 2015 suicide because like he got word of it and he started getting a hold of parents and they stopped. A few kids did actually commit suicide, but the majority survived or were prevented from actually performing the act.
You want to know what's really sad about this? Aside from the kids committing suicide or them even attempting it, is the fact that like this is like the first time I heard about it.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. Like 2015, like 1983 is older than I am, so you're like, okay, that's kind of a while back. 2015,
I remember that
my child was around. Like my first child was born in 2014. So, now there's also a couple times that Walking Sam has been seen as an omen. He shows up kind of like the Mothman, and then something bad happens. I'm like, well, yeah, because he's the one causing.
Yeah, just like that whole idea that he's just there to cause problems.
Now, the last sighting I have is from the mid-2000s. A girl was walking home and went by an abandoned convenience store and saw somebody in the store, so she went back and looked. Like, this store's been empty for years. Like, you know, both of us know there are empty buildings that have been empty as long. Like, we're both grown adults, and there's buildings in our town that we have never seen anything.
Yeah.
And you walk by it, and like if all of a sudden you saw somebody in it, you'd be like,
"That's not good."
Hold up! Like, you might go take a double look. She went and did a double look, and Walking Sam turned around and waved at her, and she's like, "Oh shit, that dude doesn't have a mouth." And quickly tried to move away, and she heard him start whistling at her.
Yeah, it's like time to go.
And trying to like summon for her to come back. And so like she booked it because like when he waved, he started walking towards the front. And after that, she reported for years having
like
depression and nightmares and night terrors.
Lordy.
So those are sightings of Walking Sam. But let's talk about some explanations of what he is. So let's throw a couple of these out just to get them out the way, and then talk about
like real explanations.
Real explanation. So first off, he's a Bigfoot.
Okay, yeah, saw that one coming.
Could be a demon.
Right.
A lot of people online, especially like Reddit, because like Walking Sam stories.
Okay.
Walking Sam stories took off with creepypasta and Reddit and TikTok. Kind of like if you go on TikTok and you like look at one creepy video, next thing you know, you got like
a billion.
8 skinwalker videos that are popping up, and it's like
native folklore gets a lot of focus and like creepy like online spaces
because it's completely alien to a lot of people, so it makes it even scarier. But so like could be a Bigfoot, could be a demon.
Demon's like a default to me.
Could be local spirit, could be a suicide spirit, could be a stick people, could be a shadow demon or a shadow person, could be any of those. So let's go ahead and list all the ones that the origins and the legends supernatural.
It could be aliens. Let's just throw aliens in there.
You know what? It could be. I didn't see that one as a possible cause, but
look, if demons are like a default, then aliens are the second, or sometimes the first.
Right. Now, let's be honest. The main description of Walking Sam is very much a mixture of a stick person or a shadow spirit mixed with the modern day cryptid Slender Man.
Yeah.
They have very much the exact same MO. Like,
now, is Walking Sam a new name for it, or
Walking Sam has been a name for a while. Like even in the 70s, even older, it was called
Walking
Sam. So now there are some beliefs that Slender Man might have taken some elements from Walking Sam.
A lot of creepypastas, I mean, just like any art or just like any sort of literature. I mean, I stretch the terms of art and literature with creepy. Yeah, some creepypastas are really good. Okay, I'm going to get shit if someone hears me say that. Some creepypastas are really good, but like I wouldn't like a lot of like art and literature and things that we make, a lot of our creative endeavors are inspired by other things or real life events or things like that.
Now, another explanation that I feel is a little bit more realistic is that Walking Sam is a hallucination along the lines of the Hat Man.
Like a collective.
It's like kind of a collective, like this entity has been described so much at this point that it's imprinted itself. It's imprinted itself in part of the zeitgeist, so that when these children start having these depressed thoughts, they don't see themselves as thinking it. They feel that something is telling them.
And then they have other people.
Right.
Like, and here's the thing about that too. Something I've been thinking about since I did the Hat Man episode. It's like, you don't really need to know about the Hat Man to have that sort of like cultural imprintation, because for one, we're talking about generalities. I mean, we're talking about a man in a hat, maybe has a coat on. That's a pretty common thing, and it can be an imposing thing, especially if you have memories of, as a kid, seeing someone like that, and might not.
The stranger danger signs that were all over our neighborhoods back in the 80s and 90s.
And you might have a weird experience, and someone might talk to you. You might talk to someone about it, and they might talk about, oh, it might have been the Hat Man. And then your brain starts putting together the pieces.
That makes sense. That's what your brain said. What I believe Walking Sam 100% is an explanation to explain a epidemic of native youth suicides. I feel that like we always do this. Anyone that has lost someone to suicide, which we've both known people that
have committed
suicide. You don't want to think that your loved one just did that.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, it's why we like to, as like a population, we have like this way of framing suicide as like you have to be like really sick and really like out of it to do it. And in some cases that's kind of true, but
but
in
it's
most cases like that person who committed suicide, if they would have failed, they'd probably been normal the next day.
yeah.
Which is a very it's a very scary and very hard thing to deal with
It,
when you consider like those sort of thoughts as like the human condition.
yeah. So I mean, I feel that that's what Walking Sam is
Yeah,
an explanation. It's what I feel like the stick people, what I believe certain Fae are, is this is an explanation so that the harsh reality, the bitterness, the bite, is not
something to take the edge off of something
a little bit. Now, I'll be honest. Could it be an entity that does this? I would not rule that 100% out as a possibility.
I mean, hell, we've both been in the woods and like heard and seen some weird shit. So
I mean, like okay. Let me put this: I 95% believe this is an explanation for a terrible thing that has happened. 5% of me goes, it could be something weird like that.
Once again, Louisiana skeptic. It might not be anything paranormal, but I'm not going to go out there and
I don't want to find out. I don't want to find a 7-foot tall skinny man in a top hat with no mouth.
That tells me to kill myself. You know, that's...
Yeah, I don't want that. Now, Walking Sam has appeared in his Bigfoot form on the TV show Reservation Dogs that was on FX.
Okay, yeah.
So he has appeared in that, and it's more like, oh, cool, look that. Like, they see him, and like they point it out, like, oh... It's the description I've gotten, because I haven't actually gotten to watch Reservation Dogs. Now, my sources are the Anderson Design Group store, which is where one of the first images I saw in a little snippet. Puzzle Box Horror, Astonishing Legends, the Stick Indians and Stick People, Brickology, which, there's a whole cryptid wiki that is done with Legos. And also there's a section of a Lakota wiki that is all Legos. So
That's funny because I've been using one of your son's Legos as like a fidget toy.
Also, Hanger One Publishing, which I've used before, and then Jesse V's YouTube channel. And before we close out, if anybody is having any thoughts, those intrusive thoughts, those terrible thoughts that want to make you inflict harm upon yourself, please go to the Suicide Prevention Lifeline.org. or dial 988 so that someone can talk to you and help you deal with this situation so that it doesn't become a permanent solution to what is a temporary problem.
Well, I wouldn't call it a solution. And also, I want to say thank you, I guess, for this.
Yeah, this one, okay, not gonna lie, revealing the curtain here, this is the second time we've recorded this. Nothing hit less hard.
Yeah. And it's not the same. Okay, so Terrar was a gross episode that made you uncomfortable.
Yes.
And that was kind of funny on my end. But this one, it was just all depression. And like...
No, this one was not... I would not list this one as one of our...
Fun ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he was saying, if you feel like you need help or if you feel like you're alone, get help. Trust me, things do get better. But anyway, we are Backwoods Obscura. We release every Tuesday. We are kind of on social media if you want to see us on Facebook and maybe even Blue Sky if I decide to post again. But we are also Team Bonus Action.
Team Bonus Action is a charity tabletop video game, virtual tabletop gaming group. Currently, at the time of this recording, and probably still when this one gets released, will be partnered through the end of 2024 with Extra Life and Batson Children's Hospital. All proceeds donated will go there to help parents not have to pay for medical expenses for their children. And since it is the season right now of like everybody's weird gift-giving holidays, if you can donate, we would greatly appreciate it. Pay it forward so that parents don't have to worry about paying for an electric bill versus their kids' dialysis treatment.
Yeah, and with that in mind, take care of yourself, and I hope you have a good day or night or whatever time it is.